America. Now, more than 3 years later, we are learning of another attempt by Donald Trump to directly pressure election officials that could put him and his allies in even more legal hot water. The Detroit News obtained a recording of a phone call that then President Trump and RNC Chair Ronna McDaniel made to two members of a county election board in Michigan, asking them to resist certifying election results. Quote, "We've got to fight for our country," Trump told the two members of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, Monica Palmer and William Hartman, shortly after the board had met about certifying the results. "We can't let these people take our country away from us." McDaniel said at another point on the call, "If you can go home tonight, do not sign it. We will get you attorneys." To which Trump added, "We'll take care of that." NBC News has not been able to independently verify the recordings, but NBC News reached out to a spokesperson for the former president and to the RNC, and they did not dispute the contents of the recordings. The discovery of this call could not have come at a worse time for Team Trump. The New York Times reporting that one of these so-called fake electors, the 16 people who were a key part of Trump's efforts to overturn the election in Michigan, is expressing regret over his participation in his interviews with prosecutors working for Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, saying, quote, "I felt that I had been walked into a situation that I shouldn't have ever been involved in. I am very upset. I don't show it, but I am," the elector James Renner told investigators, adding that to say he felt betrayed is an understatement. That's all I can say. Joining us now, former U.S. Attorney and co-host of the #Sisters-in-Law podcast, Joyce Vance, Tim Hafey, is also back with us. Tim, your first reaction reading about that phone call between Trump, RNC Chair McDaniel, and the Michigan officials?
Yeah, we heard about it during our investigation. We spoke to Monica Palmer, who I believe is one of the Board of Canvassers officials. She told us that she did receive a phone call from the President of the United States before she was voting on certification of the election. She did vote to certify the election. And then she subsequently tried to withdraw that, although it had no force of law. It's really important in the discussion of anything that happens in Michigan, Alicia, to remember that there were two lawsuits brought, one federal and one state in Michigan, in which judges found absolutely no evidence of any systemic fraud. Never to this day has there been any evidence of voter fraud in Michigan sufficient to undermine confidence in the outcome. A Republican state legislator, Ed McBroom in Michigan, did a very, very thorough audit with using the resources of the state legislature and found, again, verification of President Biden's victory in Michigan. So there has never been any factual foundation to question the results of the Michigan election, which is President Biden won. President Biden then received the officially certified electors for the state of Michigan. Nonetheless, the president's campaign, aided by the Republican National Committee, created these fake elector certificates that were sent to Washington purporting to be official when they were not. And that has led to the criminal charges by the Attorney General of Michigan. This is a pattern we've seen repeated in contested state after contested state. No evidence of fraud, nonetheless, generation of the fake elector certificates, which is criminal.
Joyce, I want to get your take on the timing of the events around the election certification in Michigan. November 17th, Trump and McDaniel call Wayne County officials Monica Palmer and William Hartman, that's what we were just talking about. Later that evening, Wayne County certifies the election results. November 18th, Palmer and Hartman say they regret their vote to certify the election and file affidavits to undo that vote. Then you go to November 20th, Michigan GOP leaders are summoned by Trump to the White House. November 23rd, State Election Board certifies Michigan election results. This sequence of events, help us put it in perspective. Just how damning is it legally, in your opinion, Joyce?
Well, it's incredibly damaging for Trump and for those around him. You know, to Tim's point, this is now a pattern of conduct. It's not just Georgia, which was bad enough. Now we see the same thing up in Michigan. And here's the difference, Alicia. In Georgia, Trump gets shut down by Republican politicians. They push back. They say there was no fraud. They decline to be threatened or cajoled by Trump into engaging in his conspiracy. But in Michigan, something different happens, and we see these county canvassers, after they participate in this phone call, doing precisely what was asked of them. Now, Tim hails from the Commonwealth of Virginia, so he's as familiar as I am with a Supreme Court case involving his governor, said that it's bribery to offer something of value to an official in exchange for withholding an official act. And that's exactly what happens here. Trump and Ronna McDaniel Romney, they say, look, if you would go ahead and withhold your certification vote, we will obtain lawyers for you, something of value. And that's precisely what the Michigan canvassers try to do after that call.
Tim, just to zoom out for a minute and talk about timeline, which it feels one of the core pressures that we're up against with all of these stories. The New York Times reporting this about AG Nessel's fake elector investigation. Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel's ongoing investigation means the legal aftermath of the last presidential election in Michigan will not be over before voting begins in the next one. Pretrial hearings in the electors case